The human specimen fascinated the Xerelian scientists. They had never encountered a species quite like this one before. Her name was Amy Burns, and she had been abducted 3 days ago while hiking alone in the mountains of Colorado. The lead researcher, Vextra, watched through the observation glass as Amy sat quietly in her containment chamber. The human female appeared calm despite her circumstances, which puzzled Vextra. Humans were supposed to be primitive emotional creatures. Yet this one showed remarkable composure. Perhaps this is why the Council selected this specimen for the mind probe experiment. Vextra thought the Xerelians had perfected telepathic technology centuries ago, allowing them to extract memories and knowledge from any sentient being. It was their primary method of studying new species without harmful physical examination. Today, they would attempt their first human mind probe. Amy sensed something was about to happen. She had been watching the aliens, carefully learning their routines and behaviors. These blue-skinned women with their elongated limbs and silvery eyes seemed advanced far beyond human technology. Yet Amy noticed how they flinched whenever she made sudden movements. She filed that information away. The chamber door slid open and 3 Xerelian researchers entered, led by Vextra, the tallest of them. Amy recognized her as the leader by now. "We require your cooperation." The alien spoke in perfect English. "Through some kind of translation device, we will access your mental patterns. It will cause no physical harm." Amy nodded, showing no resistance, which seemed to surprise the aliens. She had already decided that fighting would be pointless. Better to appear compliant while looking for weaknesses. The researchers positioned a silver circlet above Amy's head without touching her skin. It hovered there, humming softly. "Commence mind probe sequence," Vextra instructed. The device glowed with pale blue light, and Amy felt a gentle pressure against her consciousness, like someone knocking politely at a door rather than fight it. She did something unexpected. She welcomed the presence in. What the researchers didn't know was that Amy Burns wasn't just any human. She was a combat veteran who had served 3 tours in war zones and undergone extensive psychological training, including resistance to interrogation. She understood that the most dangerous weapon humans possessed wasn't physical at all. It was the contents of their minds. The mind probe activated, fully connecting the alien researchers directly to Amy's consciousness. What happened next would change Xerelian understanding of humanity. Forever, Vextra gasped as the mental connection formed instead of the expected primitive thought patterns. She encountered something vast and chaotic. Human memory didn't organize like Xerelian minds. They experienced time differently, with emotions tangled through every thought, feeling fear and joy and hatred and love simultaneously in ways that seemed impossible. Then Amy decided to help them see. She brought forward her combat memories, the thunderous explosions, the screams of the wounded, the smell of blood and burning buildings. She showed them humanity at war. Not just the physical violence, but the psychological horror, the moral ambiguity, the capacity for both tremendous cruelty and extraordinary compassion. One of the junior researchers, named Lyrith, collapsed immediately, overwhelmed by the sensory assault. Vextra struggled to maintain the connection as Amy continued showing them humanity through her eyes. Amy revealed human art next, the sublime beauty of music that could make people weep. The stories humans told themselves about heroes and monsters, the paintings and sculptures, created simply because humans found beauty necessary for survival. She showed them comedy, how humans found humor in darkness and tragedy, how laughter could exist alongside grief. Vextra had never encountered a mind so contradictory, so seemingly impossible. But Amy wasn't finished. She showed them human scientific thought, the relentless questioning, the refusal to accept limitations, the constant drive to understand and master their environment. Despite their short lifespans, she revealed how humans had gone from primitive tools to space exploration in a mere few thousand years, while the Xerelians had taken millions to achieve the same progress. Then came human love. The absolute devotion parents felt for children, the bonds between friends willing to die for each other, the romantic connections that defied rational explanation. Amy showed them how humans would sacrifice everything for those they loved. The third researcher began trembling violently before disconnecting herself from the probe, but Vextra remained connected, determined to understand. Finally, Amy revealed the darkest aspect of human psychology. their capacity for hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Humans would fight on when all logic said surrender was the only option. They would rebuild after destruction. They would love again after heartbreak. They would believe in better futures that had no evidence of coming true. This irrational hope, combined with their technological progress, their capacity for both violence and love, their creativity and determination, made humans something the Exorelians had never imagined could exist in the universe. A species of beautiful, terrible contradictions. Vextra screamed then, not from fear, but from the sheer, overwhelming nature of human consciousness, her mind unable to process the complexity of what she witnessed. The mind probe overloaded and shut down, leaving the research lab in silence, except for the alarms now blaring. Amy sat calmly as the circlet clattered to the floor. She looked at Vextra, who had fallen to her knees trembling. "Understand now?" Amy said quietly. "We aren't what you thought we were." 3 hours later, Amy Burns sat across from the Exorelian High Counselor in what appeared to be a diplomatic chamber rather than a cell. The events in the research lab had caused an immediate reevaluation of the human containment protocol. "We apologize for your treatment," High Counselor Zetria said, her silver eyes still wide with wonder. "The mind probe results have been shared among our leadership. We had gravely misunderstood your species." Amy nodded. "We often misunderstand ourselves," she replied. "It can be difficult to grasp contradictions." The counselor leaned forward. "You must understand that most sentient species we have encountered evolve toward harmony and consistency. Your minds contain multitudes that should not be able to coexist, yet somehow strengthen each other. This is unprecedented. What happens now?" Amy asked. "You will be returned to Earth," Zetria said, "with all memories intact. We wish to establish proper diplomatic relations with humanity. We believe we have much to learn from each other despite our technological advantages." Amy considered this carefully. The aliens had abducted her, performed experiments without consent, yet they seemed genuinely remorseful after experiencing human consciousness. Perhaps there was potential here, one condition. Amy said, "We establish the diplomatic relationship as equals, not as subjects for study." The Exorelian counselor nodded, appearing relieved. "We would expect nothing less after what we have learned." 2 days later, Amy Burns was returned to the exact location of her abduction with a small communication device that would allow her to contact the Exorelian diplomatic corps when humanity was ready. She hiked back to civilization, carrying knowledge that would change Earth's understanding of its place in the universe. As she walked, Amy smiled, thinking about Vextra's scream when confronted with the full complexity of human consciousness. It wasn't fear she had seen in the aliens' eyes. It was awe. Humans were not the primitive species. The Xorelians had assumed they were something far more interesting. They were walking contradictions capable of terrible destruction and magnificent creation. Their short, violent history had forged something unique in the galaxy minds that contained multitudes that could not be easily categorized or controlled. Amy Burns had shown one alien species the truth about humanity, that what made humans dangerous was not their weapons or technology, but their minds, their impossible ability to be many things at once, to adapt to change, to hope beyond reason. And the aliens had screamed in terror, not because humans were monsters, but because they were marvels. The shuttle ascended smoothly through Earth's atmosphere, carrying the first human delegation to the Xorelian embassy station. Amy Burns sat strapped into her seat, alongside 11 other carefully selected representatives, each chosen for their expertise in diplomacy, science, or military affairs. Dr. Samantha Wells leaned toward Amy, her voice low despite the engine's rumble. "Are you nervous?" Amy smiled. "Slightly more curious than nervous. I already know what Exorelians look like. It's the rest of you who should be prepared for the shock." General Morris, sitting across from them, raised an eyebrow. "All blue. Women with silver eyes. Hardly seems shocking after everything we've learned about the universe this month." Amy shook her head. "It's not their appearance, it's their presence. Xorelians have a certain quality to them. It's hard to explain, but you feel it immediately, like standing next to a perfectly tuned instrument." The shuttle broke through the clouds, the blue sky darkening to black as stars began to appear through the viewports ahead of them, seemingly emerging from empty space. The Xerelian embassy station shimmered into existence as it fully materialized in normal space. Collective gasps filled the cabin as the station revealed. Itself unlike human space stations with their utilitarian design, the Xerelian structure resembled an enormous crystalline flower, its petals extending outward from a central hub, each surface gleaming with iridescent blues and purples against the darkness of space. It's beautiful, breathed Helen Porter. The diplomatic lead, it's a standard design for them. Amy explained their architecture always reflects natural forms. They find human buildings disturbingly angular. The shuttle approached a docking port that opened like a blossoming bud to receive them with perfect precision. The pilot guided their vessel into the alien structure with thrusters, so gentle the passengers barely felt the connection. Ambassador Linda Martinez, the head of the human delegation, unbuckled her safety harness. Remember, everyone, she said firmly, we represent all of humanity today. No matter what we encounter, we remain professional and calm. They gathered their materials and moved toward the airlock. Amy noticed the subtle trembling in some of their hands, the quickened breathing, the signs of adrenaline. She remembered her own fear during abduction and felt sympathy for her colleagues. The airlock cycled open, revealing a curved corridor bathed in soft blue light, and standing there waiting was High Counselor Zetria, flanked by 4 other Xerelian officials. The humans froze momentarily, taking in the sight of the aliens in person. Tall, elegant beings with sky-blue skin and flowing garments that seemed to shimmer with their movements. Their most striking feature was their eyes, large and completely silver, without pupils, yet somehow expressive. Welcome to our embassy station, Zetria said, her voice melodic. Representatives of Earth, we are honored by your presence. Ambassador Martinez stepped forward. High Counselor Zetria, we bring greetings from the nations of Earth and thank you for this historic opportunity. Formal introductions followed, each human delegate stepping forward to greet the Xerelian officials. Amy noticed her colleagues struggling to maintain composure in the presence of the aliens. Just as she had predicted, there was something about Xerelians that human instinct registered as both beautiful and unsettling, like encountering something too perfect to be natural. When Amy's turn came, Zetria bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in Xerelian culture. Amy Burns, the counselor said, we meet again under better circumstances. Much better. Amy agreed with a smile. No mind probes, this time, I hope. Zetria made a sound like wind chimes that Amy recognized as laughter. Indeed, our scientists still speak of your mind with awe. One has devoted herself to studying human poetry since experiencing yours. The delegation was led through curving corridors to a large chamber clearly designed for diplomatic meetings. A circular table dominated the center with chairs adapted for both human and Xerelian anatomy. The walls displayed shifting images of both Earth and the Xerelian homeworld, landscapes, cities, and natural wonders flowing seamlessly between planets as they settled into their places. Amy noticed something odd about one wall section. It seemed slightly out of phase with the rest of the room, shimmering at a different frequency than its surroundings. She had learned to spot such anomalies during her captivity. Someone else is watching, she thought, but kept her observation to herself for no. High Counselor Zetria began the formal proceedings. We have prepared a comprehensive proposal for diplomatic relations, scientific exchange, and cultural sharing between our peoples. We believe this marks the beginning of a beneficial partnership for both Xerelians and humans. Ambassador Martinez responded with Earth's carefully crafted opening position. Both sides presented initial ideas with the expected diplomatic caution, testing boundaries, establishing positions. Amy half listened while continuing to study the shimmering wall section. As the meeting progressed, she became certain it was an observation portal, likely allowing other alien species to witness this historic first contact. She wondered if the Xerelians knew, and if so, why they hadn't mentioned these observers to the human delegation. During a brief recess, Amy approached Zetria, who stood admiring Earth displayed on the wall screens. We are not alone here, are we? Amy asked quietly. Zetria turned her silver eyes, showing no surprise at the question. Perceptive as always. Amy Burns. No, we are not alone. Word of your species has spread quickly through the galactic community. I nodded toward the shimmering section. Who are they? Representatives from the Galactic Council. Zetria explained. They oversee relations between spacefaring species. They requested permission to observe these proceedings, and you granted it without telling us," Amy said, keeping her voice neutral. Zetria tilted her head, the gesture reminding Amy of a curious bird. "We did not wish to overwhelm your delegation with too many alien presences at once. First, contact is traditionally conducted between two species. Only the observers do not participate. Amy considered this. We would have appreciated knowing, regardless, humans dislike being watched without consent." Something flickered in Zetria's silver eyes. "Regret. Perhaps you are right. It was an oversight on our part. Would you like me to introduce them?" Amy glanced at Ambassador Martinez, deep in conversation with her advisors. No, she decided not. Yet let's continue our discussions first, but I would like to meet them before we leave. The formal meetings resumed with detailed discussions of scientific exchange, Ixarelian medical technology. In particular fascinated Dr. Wells, while General Morris focused on understanding Ixarelian defensive capabilities. Without appearing too interested in weapons technology, late in the day, after hours of productive but cautious dialogue, High Counselor Zetria raised a new subject. "We wish to discuss the possibility of human integration into the wider galactic community." The human delegates exchanged glances. This was moving faster than their instructions had anticipated. Zetria continued. "There are currently 27 spacefaring species in regular diplomatic contact. Your world would be the 28th to join. This network, many are eager to establish relations with humanity, particularly after learning of your unique mental characteristics." We noticed Ambassador Martinez tense slightly. "What exactly have you told them about us?" "We shared the results of our initial contact," Zetria said. "The unexpected complexity of human consciousness has generated considerable interest." General Morris leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You mean you told everyone how our minds made your scientists scream?" Zetria appeared. Unfazed, yes. Precisely that information has made humanity quite famous already. Several species have requested permission to establish their own embassies in your solar system. The human delegation fell silent, processing this revelation. Earth had barely adjusted to the existence of one alien species. Now they were being told that dozens more were waiting in Lynn. Ami understood their shock, but also saw the opportunity. "You mentioned 27 species," she said to Zetria. "How many of them are like you, telepathic, capable of mind probes?" "Only 3," Zetria answered. "The ability is rare. Most species communicate through conventional means." Ambassador Martinez found her voice again. "We appreciate the interest from the galactic community, but Earth will need time to adapt to these revelations. We suggest focusing on Ixarelian human relations first." Before broadening our contact, Zetria bowed in acknowledgement. "Of course, we understand the need for gradual integration." As the meeting concluded, with plans for future sessions, Amy Burns watched her fellow humans, their faces showing a mixture of excitement, apprehension, and determination. Humanity had taken its first steps into a much larger universe, and she had been the unexpected bridge. What none of them fully realized yet was that Amy's mind had done more than shock the Xarelians. It had advertised humanity to the galaxy as something unique and fascinating, a species whose minds worked like no others, a species worth knowing and worth fearing. 5 years after Earth admission to the Galactic Council, Amy Burns stood at the observation window of humanity's newest achievement, the Harmony Station, a joint human-Xarelian research facility orbiting between Earth and Mars. The station represented everything the optimists had hoped for in alien contact: collaborative science, shared knowledge, and mutual growth. Behind her, a mixed team of human and alien scientists worked on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. Medical treatments derived from combined knowledge propulsion systems, merging different technological approaches, and most controversially, the Consciousness Studies Lab, where Amy's mind had become the template for understanding human cognition. Dr. Kara Mitchell, the lead human researcher, approached Amy with a tablet displaying latest results. "The Duraxians were right," she said quietly. "The neural complexity measurements are undeniable across all human test subjects." I examined the data carefully. Average human neural activity had become more complex, more interconnected year by year since first contact. The change was subtle enough that individuals wouldn't notice, but statistically significant across populations. "Is it happening to all of Us, Amy asked. Kara nodded. Everyone exposed to alien concepts, technologies, or prolonged interaction shows. Accelerated changes were adapting faster than any evolutionary model would predict. I wasn't entirely surprised her own brain scans had shown the most pronounced changes, likely because she had experienced direct mental contact with Exorelians. Her dreams had become more vivid, her intuition sharper. She sometimes felt she could sense the emotional states of those around her, particularly the alien researchers. Should we be concerned? Amy asked. Kara shrugged. That's the question, isn't it? Change isn't inherently dangerous. But the Doraxians have increased their monitoring stations around Earth. They clearly think we're becoming something. To fear, a soft chime indicated an incoming priority communication. Amy turned to the holographic display as it formed the image of Ambassador Martinez, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. Linda. Amy greeted her friend. You're calling from Council headquarters. Is everything all right? The ambassador's expression was grave. We have a situation. The Doraxian delegation has formally requested quarantine status for Earth. Amy felt her stomach tighten. Quarantine was a rarely invoked protocol restricting a species to their home system, pending investigation of potential threats to galactic stability. Only 3 species had ever been quarantined in Council history. On what grounds? Amy asked. Though she already knew, Linda looked tired. The Doraxians have presented evidence that human neural evolution is accelerating at an unprecedented rate. They claim we're becoming a psychic species, without the evolutionary safeguards that normally develop alongside such abilities. Kara stepped into view of the communication. What evidence specifically? They monitored brainwave patterns across human population centers. Without consent, Linda explained and compared them to our baseline patterns from 5 years ago. They claim the changes suggest humans will develop uncontrolled telepathic abilities within 1 generation, not 3 as they initially predicted. The implications were enormous. Humans with unregulated telepathic abilities could potentially access the thoughts of other species without their permission, could influence their decisions, could even unintentionally harm psychically sensitive species. Like the Zirconian show? Did the council vote? Amy asked. Linda grimaced. 7-4 against quarantine for now, but it's a temporary reprieve. They want a full investigation and they want you to testify before the full council. Amy, you're patient 0 for whatever is happening to us. After the call ended, Amy stood silently at the observation window looking at distant Earth, a blue marble against the blackness of space. Somewhere down there, billions of humans went about their lives unaware that their minds, their very consciousness, had become the subject of galactic concern. Kara joined her. What will you tell the council? The truth, Amy said, that human minds are adapting to new knowledge just as we've always adapted throughout our history. We incorporate new ideas, integrate contradictions, and evolve our thinking. It's what makes us human. And if the Doraxians are right, Kara pressed, if we're becoming telepathic, then we'll learn to manage it. Amy replied, just as the Exorelians and Zirconians did. We've already established ethics committees for psychic research. We've implemented protection protocols for sensitive species. Kara looked unconvinced. The difference is their abilities evolved over millions of years with natural limitations, and cultural safeguards were potentially getting these abilities in a single generation without any evolutionary breaks. Amy understood the concern, but she also recognized the fear behind it. Fear of the unknown, fear of difference, the same fear that had made the Exorelian scientists scream when first encountering the human mind. 3 days later, Amy Burns stood before the assembled Galactic Council in their grand chamber on neutral territory. The massive room, designed to accommodate representatives of all 29 member species, each in their environmentally appropriate section. The Doraxian delegation sat directly opposite the human section, their reflective skin catching the light. High Counselor Zetria opened the proceedings. We gathered to address concerns regarding human neural evolution. Representative Burns, you have been called as the first human to undergo Xorelian mind probe, and as the subject showing most pronounced neural changes, please present your testimony. Amy stepped to the central podium, feeling the weight of billions of human lives depending on her words. Distinguished representatives, she began. I stand before you as both witness and example of the phenomenon under discussion. My mind was the first human consciousness to directly connect with a Xorelian researcher an event that caused considerable distress to that researcher, and subsequently interest throughout the galactic community. She paused, meeting the gaze of various alien representatives. The Doraxian delegation has presented evidence that human neural patterns are evolving rapidly. I do not dispute their measurements, but I challenge their interpretation what they describe as dangerous evolution. We understand as adaptation, the fundamental quality that has allowed humanity to survive on a challenging planet with limited resources and numerous threats. The Doraxian representative interrupted. The mathematical models are clear, human Burns. Your species is developing telepathic capability without evolutionary safeguards. Such unregulated ability presents clear danger. Emmy nodded, acknowledging the concern. Your models measure brainwave patterns, delegate, but they cannot measure human values or ethics. What separates sentient beings from animals is not our abilities, but how we choose to use them. Humans have developed technologies that could destroy our own planet, yet we have chosen restraint. Similarly, if we develop new mental abilities, we will approach them with the same ethical frameworks we apply to all powerful tools. The Zirconian representative, their body pulsing with nervous light, spoke. Your optimism is admirable, human Burns. But our species knows the dangers of unregulated psychic ability. Even with our evolutionary safeguards, young Zirconians must undergo decades of training to prevent harm to others. Your species would have no such natural limitations. This was the heart of the matter. Amy realized not just fear of human potential but legitimate concern about unintended consequences. I propose a solution, Amy said. If the Council is concerned about human neural evolution, then help us understand and manage it, rather than fear or quarantine us. The Harmony Station already hosts consciousness research. Establish a multinational oversight committee with representatives from telepathic species to help monitor and guide. Human development. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some approving, some skeptical. The Tessarian representative clicked mandibles thoughtfully. An interesting proposal, rather than containment collaboration. The Doraxian delegation conferred among themselves before their leader spoke. We find this inadequate. Human consciousness already demonstrated dangerous complexity 5 years ago. Now it grows more complex still. What assurance can you offer that humans will not become a threat, even unintentionally? Took a deep breath and made a decision she had been considering since learning of the council meeting. I offer myself as proof, she said. I have undergone the most pronounced neural changes yet. I stand before you peacefully. I propose a demonstration. Chamber fell silent. A demonstration, the Doraxian questioned. A supervised mind probe, Amy explained. Let a Zorelian researcher and representatives from other telepathic species examine my consciousness. Now compare it to the recordings from 5 years. Go see for yourselves what human evolution truly means. Gasps and exclamations filled the chamber. No human had voluntarily submitted to a mind probe since the first accidental contact. High Counselor Zetria rose, her silver eyes wide with concern. And Burns, this is unprecedented. The risk to both you and the telepathic investigators would be considerable. I understand the risks, Amy said calmly. I experienced the process before I survived it. So did Vextra, though it was difficult for her, I believe. With proper preparation and multiple telepathic species working together, the procedure could be conducted safely. After hours of debate, protocols were established. 3 representatives from telepathic species would conduct a carefully controlled mind probe of Amy Burns, with medical teams standing by for both Amy and the investigators. The probe would be recorded and compared to the original incident from 5 years earlier. 6 months after her return to Earth, Amy Burns sat in a secure government facility, surrounded by military officials, scientists, and diplomats. The small communication device the Zorelians had given her rested on the table before them, glowing softly with an internal blue light. The room fell silent as General Diane Morris spoke carefully. So let me understand this correctly, Mrs. Burns. You were abducted by aliens who experimented on you and then sent you back with this device because they were impressed by your mind. Amy nodded. That summarizes it. Yes, though. Impressed isn't quite right. They were overwhelmed. The Exorelian mind works differently than ours. They value order, consistency, and harmony above all else. Our capacity to hold contradictory thoughts and emotions simultaneously was beyond their comprehension. Samantha Wells, the lead xenobiologist, leaned forward and they screamed when they read your mind. Not exactly. Amy clarified they screamed because human consciousness was too complex, too chaotic for them to process. It was like trying to pour an ocean into a teacup. The officials exchanged skeptical glances. Amy understood their hesitation. She had spent weeks undergoing psychological evaluations and medical tests before anyone would take her story seriously. General Morris picked up the device cautiously. And you believe this will allow us to communicate with them? It's more than that. Amy explained it's a diplomatic channel directly to their high council. They want formal relations with humanity. They want to learn from us. And what do we get in return? Asked Secretary Helen Porter, her voice sharp with suspicion. Everything, Amy said. Simply, their technology is centuries beyond ours. Their medical science could eliminate most human disease. Their energy systems could end our dependence on fossil fuels. But more importantly, they can introduce us to the galactic community. We aren't alone out there, and we need allies. Dr. Wells frowned. You seem remarkably forgiving toward beings who abducted and experimented on you without consent. Amy smiled slightly. They made a mistake. They saw us as primitive animals to study, not as equals. Once they understood what we are, they immediately changed their approach. That's more than humans have done historically when encountering new peoples. The room fell silent at that uncomfortable truth. Look, Amy continued. I was angry too at first. But I've had months to think about this. The Xorelians could have erased my memories, wiped away all evidence of their existence. Instead, they chose honesty and reconciliation. That's a foundation we can build on. General Morris nodded slowly. And what exactly did they see in your mind that caused such a reaction? Everything, Amy said. My combat experiences, my childhood, my loves and losses, my hopes and fears. But it was just the content. It was how our minds work. The Xorelians experience emotions separately categorized and controlled. Humans feel everything at once. Joy and grief, love and hate, hope and despair all tangled together. That's what overwhelmed them. The beautiful mess of human consciousness. For 3 days, the officials debated what to do with Amy's information. And the communication device governments around the world were discreetly informed. Opinions varied widely from immediate activation of the device to destroying it. And pretending none of this had happened, in the end curiosity prevailed. On a clear autumn morning in a purpose-built facility in neutral Switzerland, Amy Burns stood before the assembled representatives of Earth major nations. The Xorelian device had been carefully mounted on a special platform, connected to various monitoring systems. Are you ready? Mrs. Burns asked General Morris. Amy nodded and stepped forward, pressing her palm against the smooth surface of the alien technology. It recognized her immediately, warming to her touch and projecting a holographic display into the air before her. Connection established came a melodic voice speaking perfect English. High Counselor Zitria responding. The assembled humans gasped as a three-dimensional image of the Xorelian leader appeared before them. Tall, elegant, with blue skin and luminous silver eyes. Greetings, people of Earth. Zitria said, I am High Counselor, Zitria of the Xorelian Commonwealth. We have awaited your contact. General Morris stepped forward. I am General Diane Morris, representing the United Nations Security Council. We received your communication device from Amy Burns and wish to establish diplomatic dialogue. Zitria bowed slightly. We are pleased by this development. We propose a formal meeting between our peoples to discuss terms of first contact, a cultural exchange, and potential technological sharing. Where would this meeting take place? Asked Secretary Porter. Zitria gestured, and the hologram changed to show an orbital station circling Earth, one that had not been there the day before. We have positioned an embassy station in your orbit. It exists in a partially phased state, currently invisible to your detection systems, but we can fully materialize it with your permission. The humans exchanged shocked glances. You're already here, Secretary Porter said, her voice strained. We meant no deception. Zitria explained. We wished to be prepared for this conversation. The station is uninhabited, awaiting your approval before our diplomatic team arrives. I watched the government's representatives struggle with this revelation. The Xorelians had technology that could place an entire station in Earth orbit undetected. What else could they do if they wished? Trust has to begin somewhere. Amy said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. They could have invaded if they wanted to. She continued. They could have remained hidden, studying us secretly. Instead, they're asking permission, offering to share knowledge as equals. General Morris studied Amy for a long moment before turning back to the hologram. We accept your proposal for a meeting. High Counselor, but we request time to prepare our delegation. Of course, Zetria nodded. We suggest 3 of your Earth weeks the embassy station will remain in phased state. Until then, we will transmit coordinates for docking your vessels. The connection ended. The room erupted in excited conversation. Amy stepped back, watching the frantic activity around her. Earth was about to enter a new era. Everything would change. Later that evening, Amy stood alone on the facility's balcony, looking up at the stars somewhere up there. An alien embassy waited, hidden from human eyes. She wondered what the Exorelians were thinking. Now were they nervous, excited about formally meeting humanity? My Burns, who had once been just a hiker in the Colorado mountains, now stood at the fulcrum point of human history. She had been chosen entirely by chance. Yet that random selection might have saved humanity from centuries of isolation in the cosmos. In 3 weeks, Earth would send its first official delegation to meet an alien species. And Amy would be among them, the woman whose mind had screamed the truth of humanity into the cosmos. The woman who had shown aliens that humans were not what they seemed. What neither Amy nor the government officials knew was that the Xorelians were not the only species watching Earth now. News had spread quickly through the galactic networks about the species. With the impossible minds, the walking contradictions who had made Xorelian scientists scream in terror. Humanity was about to step onto a much larger stage, and the audience was already fascinated. 1 year after first contact, the landscape of human civilization had transformed in ways few could have predicted. Xorelian embassies now stood in 12 major Earth cities, gleaming crystalline structures that contrasted sharply with the surrounding human architecture. 7 other alien species had established diplomatic relations with Earth, bringing their own unique perspectives and technologies. Amy Burns had become something of a reluctant celebrity, the woman whose mind had screamed humanity into the galactic spotlight. She now worked as a special advisor to the newly formed Earth Diplomatic Corps, helping humans understand alien psychology and culture. Today, she stood in the Grand Meeting Hall of the United Nations, where representatives from Earth and 8 alien civilizations had gathered to discuss humanity's formal admission to the Galactic Council. Dr. Wells, now head of xenobiology research, approached Amy before the session began. How are you holding up? She asked. The Zirconian ambassador kept staring at you during the reception. We smiled slightly. They're a psychically sensitive species. They can feel the edges of our thoughts without actually reading them. It's like standing next to a storm for them. Fascinating but overwhelming. Still can't believe how quickly this is all happening. Samantha said, her voice low. Do you ever worry we're moving too fast? Amy considered the question carefully. Sometimes, she admitted. But the alternatives worry me more. If we isolate ourselves, we risk being left behind, or worse, seen as a potential threat. Remember the Doraxians? Samantha nodded. The Doraxians, the only species that had refused diplomatic relations with Earth after learning about human minds. They had instead established a monitoring station at the edge of the solar system, watching humanity from a distance with evident concern. The assembly was called to order as High Counselor Zetria, now serving as Earth's sponsor to the Galactic Council, took the central podium. Her blue skin contrasting with the formal silver robes of her office distinguished representatives. She began. We gather today to formally consider Earth's petition for associate membership in the Galactic Council. After one standard cycle of diplomatic exchange, the sponsorship committee has reviewed humanity's qualifications and contributions. Amy listened as Zetria outlined the case for human membership, emphasizing the unique perspectives humans could bring to interspecies discussions, their rapid technological adaptation, and their creative problem-solving. She carefully avoided mentioning the aspect of humanity that had truly captured galactic attention, the terrifying complexity of human consciousness. When Zetria finished, the floor opened for questions and statements from other species representatives. The Tessarian delegate, a being resembling a mantis with iridescent exoskeletal plates, spoke first. While we acknowledge humanity's remarkable adaptability, we must express concern about their historical tendency toward conflict. Their own planetary records show consistent warfare throughout their development. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Amy had expected this objection. It had been raised in preliminary discussions. Ambassador Martinez rose. To respond, we do not deny our history of conflict. Delegate Tessarian humanity has indeed struggled with violence, but we have also consistently strived for peace. Our species has demonstrated remarkable progress in reducing global conflicts over the past century. The Moldovan representative, a gaseous being contained within a translucent environment suit, spoke next, through a translation device. Our concern lies not with human history, but with human potential. The Xerelian mind probe incident suggests capabilities that may develop in unpredictable ways. Amy tensed. This was approaching the real issue, the one that had made the Duraxians withdraw completely, the fear that human minds would eventually develop even greater capacities, possibly, including natural telepathy or other psychic abilities that could threaten other species. Ambassador Martinez looked toward Amy, giving her a subtle nod. They had prepared for this. Amy rose and approached the central podium. Amy Burns, she began, simply the human whose mind caused the initial contact incident. I understand your concerns better than most, having experienced firsthand the differences between human consciousness and Xerelian consciousness. She paused, letting her gaze move across the alien representatives. What happened during the mind probe was not a demonstration of superior ability, but simply of difference. Human minds evolved on a planet with extreme environmental variations. Predators, natural disasters, and complex social structures. We developed consciousness that could hold contradictions, survive trauma, and imagine alternatives. Because we needed these abilities to survive, I continued, our minds are not weapons. They are tools shaped by our evolutionary history, just as your minds were shaped by yours. The fact that Xerelian researchers were overwhelmed by human consciousness doesn't mean humans are dangerous. It means we are different, and differences should inspire curiosity, not fear. The Zirconian representative, their translucent body pulsing with internal light, spoke. Yet your military representatives have been particularly interested in defensive technologies. This suggests preparation for conflict. Amy nodded, acknowledging the point. Humanity has always prepared for worst-case scenarios. It is part of our survival instinct, but preparation is not intention. We seek security, not dominance. Since first contact, Earth has opened all major research facilities to Xerelian observers. Our intentions are transparent. The debate continued for hours, representatives raising concerns, humans addressing them carefully. The underlying tension remained. Humanity was unpredictable. Their minds worked differently, and difference created uncertainty. Finally, High Counselor Zetria called for the vote. Earth waited. One by one, the species representatives registered their positions, the holographic display tracking the results. Amy felt her heart pounding as the final votes were tallied. By a margin of 6-2, with one abstention, Earth was granted associate membership in the Galactic Council. The human delegation broke into applause. Ambassador Martinez, accepting the formal certificate of membership with visible emotion as the celebration began, Amy noticed a disturbance at the entrance to the chamber. 3 Duraxian representatives had arrived, their tall angular bodies and reflective skin, marking them immediately as different from the other aliens. They had not participated in the vote, having refused official contact. The assembly fell silent as the lead Duraxian approached the center of the chamber. We observe this proceeding. The Duraxian stated, their voice oddly flat through the translation system. While we have chosen not to establish formal relations with humanity, we have continued to study them. We bring information relevant to this gathering. High Counselor Zetria stepped forward. The proceedings have concluded. Delegate, the vote is complete. The Duraxian remained unmoved. Our monitoring stations have detected unusual activity in human neural patterns across their population, specifically patterns consistent with developing telepathic abilities. Shocked murmurs spread through the assembly. Amy felt a cold sensation along her spine. This is unfounded speculation. Ambassador Martinez objected. No evidence supports such claims. The Duraxian turned toward her. Human brainwave activity has increased in complexity by 7%. Since first contact with non-terrestrial species, we project This acceleration will continue, possibly leading to spontaneous telepathic emergence within 3 generations. Emmy stepped forward, addressing the Duraxian directly. Even if your measurements are accurate, correlation does not imply causation. Brainwave changes could result from numerous factors, including new technologies, cultural exchange, or educational improvements. The Duraxian regarded Amy with multifaceted eyes that revealed nothing. We know your mind, human Burns. It was your consciousness that alerted us to human potential. Our decision to monitor rather than engage was based specifically on analysis of the Exarelian mind probe incident. Me felt a surge of anger. This was why the Duraxians had kept their distance. They feared what humans might become, not what humans were. No. High Counselor Zitria intervened. The Galactic Council has voted. Earth has been accepted as an associate member. This theoretical concern does not change that reality. The Duraxian delegation withdrew without further comment, leaving the celebration subdued. Amy found herself standing with Dr. Wells and Ambassador Martinez, both women looking troubled. "Do you think there's any truth to their claims?" Samantha asked quietly. Amy sighed. "Possibly. Our brains, our highly adaptable exposure to new ideas, technologies, and alien thought patterns could be changing us faster than we realize. What does that mean for our future?" Linda Martinez asked. Amy looked out at the assembly where humans now mingled with beings from across the galaxy. "It means the Duraxians aren't entirely wrong. We are changing, and we can't predict how evolution will shape us. The question is whether change should be feared or embraced." She watched as a young human diplomat laughed at something a Tessarian said, the sound bright against the background murmur. What made humans unique wasn't just their contradictory minds, but their ability to adapt, to incorporate new ideas, to evolve not just over millennia, but within generations. Whatever humanity was becoming, the journey had begun when an alien scientist screamed in terror at the complexity of a human mind. The universe would never be the same.